Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. We are on the last week of the Every Bit Counts challenge, and I am just kind of pushing hard this week to get a whole bunch of little projects done. It's not like we can't preserve in the month of September, because we definitely will still be preserving in September because my garden is kind of delayed a little bit. I had a really late start getting a lot of stuff in, so it's just being really slow right now. As you can see in the background here, my pantry is starting to fill up. Right there, I have a huge spot open, and that is because we're going to be filling a little bit of that today doing a project. But yeah, definitely I am happy with how full this is. I did a little project the other day and had to kind of rearrange my pantry a little bit again, and I knew I was going to have to do another little arrangement because as it fills up, things have to kind of get juggled around a little bit. But I canned up some candied jalapeno. I did not film it. I have had my children here for the last couple of weeks. They do not live full time with me. They actually live pretty far away from me. They are in school. Actually, my daughter already graduated from university, so they are not really technically kids. They are definitely young adults. But anyways, they were here visiting for a couple of weeks, so I really did not focus too hard on doing a lot of big major canning projects. I really just kind of puttered around with little things like getting my dry beans off. I did a lot of pepper preservation by drying. We really like to have like cayenne pepper and chili flakes. I use a lot of it in my cooking. So a lot of those projects that I have been puttering away with, I didn't unfortunately really film a lot of them again because they were here and I just wanted to just soak up as much time as I could with them. So unfortunately I didn't film this for you guys, but I am going to be doing another batch of that because my plants are loaded with jalapeno peppers, and my goal this year is to get a lot of candied jalapeno or cowboy candy and a whole bunch of pickled jalapenos, which I have down there. So I will still do a video showing you guys how I make my cowboy candy. But I did actually do a little video showing you how I make my pickled jalapenos right here. These guys, we go through them a lot. I like to have pickled jalapenos, I put it in my meatloaf, I put it in tacos, like anything imaginable, I like to have some pickled jalapenos in it. So I'm gonna insert that clip right here and show you guys how I make my pickled jalapenos. For the pickled jalapenos, we're going to use this cookbook, and it is on page 174, and it's just called the hot pepper recipe. You can use any type of peppers for this. It does not necessarily need to be jalapeno peppers. I use this recipe also for my banana peppers. So I'm going to wear gloves to do this project because I have not worn them one time. It only took one time me not wearing gloves to process jalapenos before I learned my lesson. I burnt my hands. It's so bad. Like 2 days they were just burning. So I would strongly recommend wearing gloves to do this. So we're going to take 3 cloves of garlic and we're just going to crush them with the back of the knife. You do not need to mince them. You just want to get them just kind of open a little bit. And then to a large stock pot, we're going to add 1 quart plus 2 cups of a white vinegar. Just make sure it is a 5% acidity. And then we're going to add 2 cups of water and those crushed garlic cloves. We're going to bring that to a boil. And while it's coming to a boil, we're going to get our jalapenos all prepped. So I'm just rinsing my jalapenos off really good. Some of my jalapenos did this really weird thing. It's almost like they were a mutant, and it was only one plant out of the exact same seed pack, and they just did this weird mutant thing. They taste perfectly fine. They just grew this like crown almost. It was really weird. We're gonna get the stems cut off of them, and one thing I like to do is can my jalapenos in rings. So I like to keep the jalapeno intact, like in its full shape, and then I just take a little spoon and just scrape out the seeds. Now if you want to have really spicy jalapenos, you don't have to scrape the seeds out, but these jalapenos, as I showed you earlier, they had like little streaks in them, which means those jalapenos are really hot, and even some of them were red in here. So I already know these jalapenos are going to be super spicy, so I'm going to take these seeds out. Once I get them all seeded, the pot had now come to a boil, and we're gonna just bring this to a simmer for 5 minutes. Once it comes to a simmer, we're just gonna remove and discard that garlic. So again, I'm just cutting them into rings because that's how I like my jalapenos done. And the rings, I usually like to have them about, usually about a ½ an inch. It all depends. Sometimes I do them a little bit thicker if the jalapeno is just a little bit smaller. Once I get them all cut up, I'm gonna get my jars prepared. Now, one thing I really like to use is this ball pickle crisp. I use 1/8 of a teaspoon per pint-sized jar. I have made jalapenos in the past and they've just turned out really, really mushy. So I definitely like using this crispy because it keeps the jalapenos kind of nice and crunchy and not turning to mush. So I'm gonna do them in pint-sized jars. This is the size that we like. We go through them pretty quickly, so a pint-sized jar isn't too much. If you don't eat a lot of them, ½ pints is perfectly fine, or if your family goes through a lot of them, quart-sized jars is also another option. You could can them in. So you want to make sure that you are really packing these jars tight. You've seen the amount of jalapenos that I had there, and I only got 3 pint-sized jars once I got them good and packed. It is amazing how much these shrink during the heating process of the canning. So I had a whole bunch of extra space once these cooked and were in the canner. So definitely make sure you're really packing them tight. Once you get them packed tight, you're gonna ladle that hot vinegar water mixture over top of them, and you're gonna leave a ½ inch headspace. Then you're gonna come in and debubble and readjust your headspace if need be. You wanna make sure you're cleaning the rims off, and then you put your lids on and rings fingertip tight. And these are gonna go into the water bath canner for 10 minutes. It definitely says adjust it to your altitude. Most canning books come with like an altitude guide at the front or the back of the canning book. So just pay attention. Depending on your altitude, that's how long you're gonna need to water bath can it for. So I unfortunately did not get a video of these coming out of the canner, but I assure you they were really, really good, and they're now sitting on my pantry shelf. So this is a really good way to preserve the peppers. All right, so today's task is gonna be filling this area right here. Well, half of this area. This area I have reserved for my enchilada sauce. I have recently fallen in love with a recipe called an enchilada skillet. I just one day just threw a whole bunch of components together and this beautiful recipe came out. I am gonna film it for you guys because it is such a delicious, delicious meal. I'm not gonna film it on this video, but in the upcoming weeks, I'm gonna start to do a lot more meal videos because we're kind of shifting again from the preservation to more of using what we've preserved. This is my tomatoes. This is literally what I'm bringing in about every, I would say maybe 3 days. Last year I had like this white table. I had 2 of these in this back room and they were filled with tomatoes. This year, again, because my garden just did horrible this year, is a combination of me being sick, really, really wet weather at the beginning of May and June, and then July, we had a total drought. So anyways, my garden just suffered this year and I'm just having a really bad tomato year. It happens. But last year, I had a really, really good tomato year. So what I like to do is whenever I'm having a bumper crop or a really good year of something, I like to can at least 2 years worth of it. So last year, I canned a whole bunch of tomato sauce. This is just a plain tomato sauce. There is no other flavors in it, no salt, no pepper, nothing. It is just tomatoes that I cooked down, and then I took the skins off and seeded them in a food mill. So this is just a plain, smooth tomato sauce. So what we're gonna do today is we are gonna make our enchilada sauce using some of last year's tomato sauce because I need to have enchilada sauce and I have still a whole bunch of these, which I love to have just plain tomato sauce because it really is versatile. Like I'm not going to be able to can a lot of my pasta sauce this year, again, because I'm having a bad tomato year, but because I have so much tomato sauce, I can repurpose it and make that. So we're going to can up a whole bunch of enchilada sauce today. I'm so excited to get it back on my shelf. We haven't had the enchilada skillet in a while because I've ran out of enchilada sauce. So I have some peppers here. I don't know what kind of pepper they are. I got them at a really big like international supermarket in Nashville. It is such an amazing store. You can, like any nationality, they have the food there and it is so awesome. Anyways, I bought this bag. I threw them in my freezer because honestly, I'm not gonna use this many dried chilies. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not. Probably not. Camera's probably not gonna pick it up. But you see all of these white things floating around? They're all right here. Camera's probably not gonna pick it up. There's just hundreds and thousands of them. It is called a woolly aphid, and apparently in this area this is the time of year for them. I don't remember ever seeing them before. It's almost like pollen is just floating in the air, but it's apparently these aphids, and they eat the sap off of trees, and this is the time of the year that they come out, but there's just thousands of them. And because there's thousands of them, we have so many dragonflies right now because they're eating them all. It's pretty cool. Oh, I want to show you what my starts look like. So I had planted some stuff outside, and unfortunately it got all ate by the cabbage moss. Plus, it's just been really hot, so it hasn't been doing really well. So I started a whole bunch inside, and I have been hardening these off for a while. So these all have to go out. Probably I'll do it maybe tomorrow or the next day. It's still pretty hot out. We are getting another like heat wave right now, and yesterday, I think before the heat index, it was 106 outside, which is crazy. One nice thing about it is that we don't have any humidity right now because we haven't had rain in about 3 weeks. It's really, really dry out there, which is not good for my carrots. But anyways, we haven't had rain for about 3 weeks, so there is no moisture in the ground. So we are experiencing a dry heat here, which is not normal. Normally here in South Central Kentucky, the humidity is unbearable here, but for the last couple of days, it's almost felt like the West Coast, where 105, it's hot, but it is definitely a manageable heat because we have zero humidity. So it's really been enjoyable. Well, not enjoyable. 105 is still really hot, but it's been nice not having the humidity. So to get started on the enchilada sauce, what we're gonna do is we are gonna get these chilies roasted. I took them out of my freezer maybe about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, because they're dried already. They're nice and thawed out. So we are gonna roast them for about 30 seconds. My cast iron skillet here. We're gonna turn it up to a really high temperature. We wanna get it like screaming hot. The recipe I'm using today is online. Now I have a printed out version of an enchilada sauce that I have made in the years past. I don't know where I got it, but I wanted to be able to leave something linkable for you guys so you could kind of get, you know, have it for your own, because I don't know where I got my original one from. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use a combination of both of these recipes. Now this is a pressure canning recipe, so you do need to have a pressure canner for it. And that's the other reason why I'm kind of comfortable using kind of a mix of these recipes, because they're very, very similar with just a couple little exceptions, which is like the peppers. So this recipe calls for 18 dried ancho peppers, 20 dried galajo. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm gonna leave it written down below for you guys. I am literally butchering that word. And then it also says 20 dried California peppers. I don't know if that's like a bell pepper. Anyways, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna use these, and I don't think I'm gonna use 20 of these because these are like a really, really spicy pepper. And as you can see on the package, I have no clue what kind of peppers these are. I just remember I bought them 2 years ago to make enchilada sauce with, and it was really good, but they're very, very hot. I'm thinking they're maybe ancho peppers. Not sure. Anyways, because they're really hot, and I don't know if you can see the smoke coming off that, we're not gonna use 20. We're gonna maybe use like, I don't know, 10? Okay, I'm feeling like that's good. I can smell these already. Woo! And so what we're doing is we're just pretty much roasting them. Oh, I can smell the heat off of these already. I'm just getting them nice and toasty. So that's good. I'm gonna pull them off. They really, really do smell hot. I don't know what kind of peppers these are. I remember when I made my enchilada sauce with them, it was really, really spicy enchilada sauce. I'm just gonna put these back into my freezer. That's where I store them. They are already dried, and so they will stay fresh for a while, but just putting them in the freezer makes them stay fresh for even longer. The recipe calls for 24 pounds of tomatoes. A while ago, when I was making some tomato sauce, I wanted to know how much approximately 1 quart or pint of tomato sauce equaled like a canned tomato. So I did a little bit of calculations and I wrote it down, and I always reference this whenever I'm gonna make a recipe like we are today, where we're gonna be using this stuff instead of fresh tomatoes. So a 28-ounce can of tomatoes equals about 10 to 12 whole tomatoes. So that is approximately 2 pounds. So a 20-ounce jar of canned tomatoes equals approximately 2 pounds of tomatoes. Then we have a 14.5-ounce jar, which is very similar, sorry you guys cannot see me, which is very similar to a pint of tomato sauce. And that will equal approximately 1 pound of tomatoes. So a quart-sized jar, according to my research a couple years ago, is approximately 2 pounds of tomatoes. And what did I say this recipe needs is 24 pounds of tomatoes. So we need about 12 quarts, but I feel this is gonna make a lot of enchilada sauce. And it's because these are already cooked down, it's not gonna cook down as much. So I don't know if we're gonna use a full 12. We'll probably only use about 10 quarts. I came back here to grab an onion for the recipe, and I went to go and get an onion out of the bag, and I realized that a whole bunch of my onions, my red onions, are starting to go bad. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna kind of go through this pile right here, and I'm gonna see which ones are like worth saving, and then the ones that aren't, we're just gonna do a really big chopping of them all, and then I'm gonna get some in the freezer. I want to check my other onions and make sure they're fine as well. My onions did not do very well this year, again, because of everything, all the factors. Yeah, like see, this one's gone bad. Okay, now we just added a second project to our list, getting our onions preserved. I'm fine with having onions in the freezer. Having them in the freezer is almost the exact same thing as having them fresh. I don't really put fresh onions on a salad or anything, so I use them in cooking that I usually end up mashing them up anyways. So it is okay for me to have my onions in the freezer. Yeah, these are definitely, look at this onion. Just evaporated into thin air. When an onion goes bad, it is some kind of smell, and it is not a good smell. I'm surprised I did not smell these bags earlier. This is what I have left of my onion harvest this year, but I have put a whole bunch in the freezer already. So we're just gonna pick through these, and we're gonna get these quickly chopped up, and then we can move to the enchilada sauce. Oh, you know what I wanna do? I wanna save my peelings because I wanna make some stock. So I need to save all of these onion peels. Keep a bag in the freezer of just like little peelings and stuff, and it's perfect for when I need to make a batch of chicken broth or vegetable broth, any type of broth. The rotten ones I'm not gonna save, I'm just gonna put those in my compost. Some of these onions are really, really potent. Some of these onions, as you can see on my face, are very, 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 very potent. My eyes are burning. It's because I cursed myself and I said that when you use the chopper, your eyes don't burn. Well, these onions are ripe, like really, really strong. I opened a window. You guys have actually given me some really good suggestions on how to cut an onion without making your eyes bleed. One of them was to put a pan and have it going out this way. I'm just gonna try to quickly get this done and hopefully allow my eyes to stop burning. Peeling them, like I said, is the worst part. This doesn't actually cause burn because you're just doing this so quickly. I got through half of them and then had to stop because like I couldn't even open my eyes. They were stinging so bad. And I mix my onions. You can see here I'm adding yellow, white, and red all to the same mix, and it is perfectly fine. I'm not picky. Get a freezer bag out. Chopped onions, full of it. Onions are all chopped up. Big bag of chopped onions. So this recipe, because again, it makes so much enchilada sauce, it calls for 10 to 15 onions chopped. I'm obviously not going to use this whole bag of onions because we did more than 10 to 15 onions. I'm probably going to use, you know, maybe a quarter of it. So we have our chilies. They have cooled down a little bit. What I'm going to do is just take the stems off of them and then just try to get most of these seeds out. I'm just putting them in my sink. I think that's where they got too spicy last time, is I left the seeds in it. So I got most of the seeds out of them. I have a small pot of water boiling, and I'm just gonna add these chilies to it. And we are gonna boil these for 5 minutes. I just wanna soften them up and just cook them. These chilies are all softened, so I'm just gonna turn the heat off, and then I'm gonna put them in a bowl. Drain off as much water as I can. I feel like that water would be like really, really good to season something with. I'm just gonna drain it. I have my immersion blender here, and we're just gonna blend these up. I have a really, really big stock pot here, and we are gonna take all of our tomato sauce and we are gonna dump it into this stock pot. So I'm gonna use 10 quarts of tomato sauce, and then just to kind of top it up, I'm just gonna use some pints. I have some pints left over from actually 2022 that need to get used, so I'm just gonna add those in here. I actually forgot to do one step. We need to get these onions and garlic kind of sauteed up a little bit. So I'm gonna put the cast iron back on. The one that I use for the peppers. I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic oil to the cast iron. And we're gonna fry up these onions and about a quarter cup of minced garlic. Garlic is another thing that I pre-mince and put in my freezer. It's just such a time saver. We have all of our onions in here. So I probably use maybe about 4 cups of onions that we had pre-chopped in here. So I'm just cooking them down in that garlic oil until they get, you know, somewhat translucent. And then I have approximately a quarter cup of minced garlic in here. And so we're just gonna add that in also. And we're not trying to like completely cook it. We just wanna get this stuff nice and soft. We're just gonna add our onions and garlic into this big pot of tomato sauce. Now, I have left the recipe links for you guys. If you're not using tomato sauce in this, then what you wanna do is you wanna cook your tomatoes down a little bit until they're nice and soft. And then you want to puree them until they get to like the tomato sauce consistency. Then you also wanna make sure you're removing the seeds and the skins on those. Okay, and then we're gonna also add our chilies that we just pureed. I need to get my big spoon. And I'm just stirring it all in so that everything's incorporated. And I'm gonna get this turned on to like a medium heat. We're gonna puree this again because I don't wanna have chunks of onions in here. So we're gonna cook everything and then puree it at the very end. So let's get our spices in here. So we are gonna add 4 tablespoons of a cumin. I'm doing heaping tablespoons because we really like cumin in our enchilada. You want to do 4 tablespoons of a ground coriander. I don't know if I have exactly 4 tablespoons. I'm going to put some chipotle peppers in because we like a chipotle style, or not chipotle peppers, chipotle chili, because we like the taste of chipotle in our enchilada. So I'm probably going to do about 2 tablespoons. And then a quarter cup of oregano, and then half a cup of salt. I am not gonna do this over that thing. With my luck, the whole thing would have fallen in. This is completely optional, but I really like it in it. I'm gonna do half a cup of packed light brown sugar. Let's give this a stir. So if you want to have a little bit more spice to this, you can definitely add some red pepper flakes. It would make it really, really spicy. But because we put those super spicy peppers in here, I'm not thinking I need to add any more heat. But we will do a little taste test and see. I don't need to add any more heat. It's good. It is not spicy. Well, it is a little spicy, but it's not like crazy spicy, is what I really like. Because when I'm making like either enchiladas or like my enchilada skillet, I like to have the option of adding additional heat to it. I think the salt's good on that too. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are gonna let this cook for about 30 to 45 minutes. We just kind of want it to thicken up a little bit. I like to have not a super thick enchilada sauce. I want it to be a little bit runny, but it is still pretty runny here. And plus you want to give the onions a little bit more time to cook and get a little bit more soft. So we're gonna let this cook for, I'd say maybe 45 minutes. And again, I have it on like a medium-high heat. Just gonna bring it to a boil, and then once it gets to a boil, we'll simmer it and cover it so I don't get splattered enchilada sauce everywhere. And then we can get it canned up. While we are waiting for this to cool, I just ran out to my greenhouse and grabbed all of this basil. It's been sitting in there for, shamefully, probably a couple of weeks. It is nice and dry. So I want to get this preserved. Now, normally I preserve it in just these Ziploc baggies, but I find that the freshness doesn't stay as fresh. I'm gonna try a new kitchen tool. So this company right here, I use their vacuum sealer bags and I love them. I cannot recommend them enough. They are amazing. I actually found this company on Amazon years and years ago, and I have been using them to preserve all of my chickens in. Like when I process my chickens, that's what I put my parted out pieces in. I also like to put all of my garden stuff that I freeze, and they work perfect. I found them because I wanted to have another option other than Food Saver or like the Cabela's bags, because they are pretty pricey. So years and years ago, I got these bags on Amazon and I have been using them since, and I love them. I have been wanting to find like a vacuum sealer top that I can use for my mason jars, for all of my stuff that I don't can, like my teas, my herbs, all of that stuff. And this company offered for me to try this vacuum sealer. So we're gonna give it a try because I really want to try to make sure that my basil stays fresh as long as possible. And again, I have a discount code for this as well in my video description for you guys. So the kit comes with some little vacuum sealer bags that you can use with this tool. It comes with the vacuum sealer, and then it comes with attachments for either a wide mouth or a regular mouth mason jar. And then they actually give you a couple of lids as well. Okay, so let's get the basil all put into this jar. I just dry mine on the stem. I like to try not to crush them until right before I use them. Makes them stay a little bit fresher, tasting longer. The second you crush something, you start to release its oils, and that's what you want. That's where the flavors are. So you try not to crush your leaves when you're drying them. Try to keep them as whole as possible. And these are pretty much just sun-dried. I did not use a dehydrator for this. That's why they look a little bit like that. I just put them in a little herb dryer that I have in my greenhouse and just leave them. All right, so I have as much as I can possibly jam in here. So this is a wide mouth jar. This is a ½ gallon. One of their lids on here. Now you don't have to use their lids. You can use any lids. You can use like regular ball lids as well. And then we're gonna take the wide mouth attachment, and then we're just gonna slip it on here. There's a little hole up here, and there's a little like sticky thing here. So we're just gonna put it on here, push down. Okay, it should be sealed. This off. Perfect, it's sealed. It's got a nice seal on it. So that will keep it airtight and it'll keep it fresher a lot longer. So I'm really, really happy. So I have a little bit left in this bag, and so I want to vacuum seal it. So let's try the bag attachment. The other neat thing that the kit comes with is it has a bottle attachment, so you can even vacuum seal stuff in bottles, which is really, really cool. This smells so, so good. Make sure it's closed up good. I love this. I might even try to get more of these bags instead of the ones I use, because this is honestly easier than getting out my huge vacuum sealer for just a little project like that, especially if I'm like blanching vegetables or something. Works really, really good. I am super pleased with this. Definitely would recommend it. This is the one that I'm most excited about though, doing my jars like this, because this is gonna make my herbs and my teas last way longer. So definitely recommend this. I am really pleased. So again, I have the link below for you guys in the video description if you wanna save 15%. You can get their products on either Amazon or on their actual website. I've ordered their vacuum sealer bags just from Amazon, and it's really, I've really not had a problem with it. We got another project off the list. I can really smell this enchilada sauce. It is cooking away really good. I'm just coming and stirring it just so that it doesn't burn on the bottom, but it's definitely starting to thicken up good. I'm actually gonna leave the lid off of it because I want some of this moisture to evaporate. That's a good way to get something to thicken really quickly. And because I have it now on like a low boil, I'm not worried about it splattering everywhere. So I'll probably leave this maybe for about another 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna get my pressure canner out. I'm gonna use pint-sized jars for this. I like to use the pint-sized jars because that's what my recipe typically calls for. If I need anything else, then I just use 2 of them. This is smelling delicious. We'll leave this for about another 30 minutes. It's honestly ready right now, but I just trying to get it just a tad bit more thicker than this. I think this is good. We are gonna get this pureed really quickly. And I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm not trying to burn myself. And we'll use the immersion blender. So I'll just give it a stir quickly before we do that. Just get the stuff off the bottom. You know what? We'll just take it off the element. Let's get a little trivet. There we go. So I have my hot jars out here, and we are gonna fill these up to 1-inch headspace. We're just going to get these quickly debubbled, and then we are gonna get the rims cleaned. Get our lids on them. Close them to fingertip tight. Then we're gonna get them in the canner. I had to take this off the element because it was like boiling a little bit too hard. And because I'm doing them in pint-sized jars, I can double stack, which is really nice because we have a big load of enchilada sauce here. I may be cutting this a little close and it may not work out. I have to leave for an appointment at 1:30 and it is 12:45, so I don't know if this is gonna work. We're gonna pressure can these for 20 minutes. So I have them all loaded in my pressure canner here. We're gonna wait for it to vent, then wait for it to come to pressure, and then we'll start the timer. I may have to actually come back and do this project again because I don't think I'm gonna have enough time, but we'll see, we'll see. I'm gonna get my other pressure canner out, my countertop one. That one I can safely leave and not have to really babysit. We got this much more enchilada sauce, so that will be enough of a load for my other little pressure canner. So that is gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is such an easy enchilada sauce to make and it really tastes delicious. I love it. And like I said at the beginning, I'm probably gonna start to film more meals again. Once preservation season kind of slows down for me, then I start filming more like baking and more cooking, but I'm usually still preserving even in the dead of winter because there's always something that I can be putting up. So that's gonna be it, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys. Also, I'll come back and show you guys what they look like coming out of the canner.